Welcome to In the Loop with Lupus in Color. We are so glad you are here. Today we are talking to Stanford Alpha Clinic about gene and cell therapy. So we are not going to take up a lot of your time, but we want you to get the information that you need to understand what cell therapy is and what gene therapy is and how CAR T cell therapy is coming into play with lupus. So I want to welcome Sreeja from the Stanford Alpha Clinic. If you could just give us a little synopsis of what the Stanford Alpha Clinic is, then we can get started.
Absolutely, Raquel. Thank you so much for having me, Raquel and Lupus in Color. We really appreciate getting the chance to work with you all and to share what information we have about cell and gene therapies. My name is Sreeja Kalapudakil. I am a cell and gene therapy access facilitator with Stanford Alpha Clinic within Stanford Medicine. And my role basically is to look at all of the different barriers and access to cell and gene therapy care, especially within our historically underrepresented communities, both here where we're based in California and beyond. Part of a huge barrier in access to care is education and the lack of awareness and information that's available around cell and gene therapies. And so we really appreciate Lupus in Color for helping us get the word out to more folks as cell and gene therapies become more and more advanced. So Stanford Alpha Clinic, we are actually, first thing to know about Stanford Alpha Clinic is that we're not a physical clinic. we are not an in-person clinic. We are a network and a hub, a resources hub for all things cell and gene therapy clinical trials at Stanford Medicine. What we do is we play the role of a connector. So myself in my role, as well as Stanford Alpha Clinic, we connect information, people, resources, and people who are seeking resources and people who have resources and expertise. And we are essentially a connector of the dots in order to facilitate, smoother access to cell and gene therapy clinical trials. Yes. Oh, yes. The work exists across so many fields of medicine that work is actually very essential to making sure care gets into the right hands and information gets to the right people.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that information. And I know it's also important to know that we are not doctors. All this information is just given to you for educational purposes so that you can be in the know about what's coming in the pipe for lupus.
Yes, and I just wanted to reiterate your point, Raquel, that I am not a physician. I cannot diagnose or be able to direct specific, symptoms or cases or diagnoses. My role is primarily to provide information about what we have available, and then to connect you to clinicians that might be able to help you make a more informed decision.
Awesome.
All right. We are Alpha Clinic. Alpha Clinic is funded by California Institute of Regenerative Medicine, which is a statewide taxpayer commitment to regenerative medicine and advancing it across all California residents, especially historically underserved communities. And also, as our trials serve beyond California, we serve nationally and internationally as well. That mandate to expand equitable access kind of goes, there's no borders. We're aiming for global. Mm-hmm. And so that's a little bit about who we are. So in this talk, I'd like to give a brief introduction to gene therapy, a brief introduction to cell therapy, a little bit of a deeper dive into CAR T cell therapy, and then just share some information about the latest research related to CAR T cell therapy and lupus. And I just want to let everyone here know that the resources in this presentation can be found in these three different resources listed at the bottom of the screen. ASGCT in particular has a beautiful patient education website that really gets into the details of the science behind gene therapy and cell therapy. And it's really well done, very easy to understand as well. So that's a great place to go as a resource. And hopefully I can share these slides with you afterwards, Raquel, to be able to share more broadly and people will be able to click on the links. And the American Cancer Society has a wonderful, newly released public-facing educational videos on CAR T cell therapy. And then one of our sponsors for research related to CAR T cell therapy and lupus at Stanford, the BMS, Bristol Myers Squibb, actually also has wonderful information about CAR T cell therapy for lupus specifically. So that's just resources. If this information in this presentation interests folks, like if you go to these websites, you'll get more of a deeper dive and perhaps answers to other questions you might have. Say that we're one of 9 alpha clinics, and together we form a meta network within the state of California.
Okay.
And some of our main pillars of work and our vision is one, to advance regenerative medicine therapies. At Stanford, we have about 40 active clinical trials for cell and gene therapy, spanning a wide range of conditions. Many of them are inherited genetic disorders, but then we also have rare cancers as well. And then we're really quickly expanding beyond the space to conditions like autoimmune diseases and other areas as the field is becoming more and more innovative.
Now, I see it says regenerative medicine therapies. Explain that to me.
That's a great question, Raquel, because this word I think gets tossed around a lot. And there are many affiliated words as well. I think you will hear in mainstream media, or if you Google, you'll see regenerative medicine, you'll see stem cell therapy, you'll see stem cell clinics, you'll see cell therapy and gene therapy. The term that we use most often is cell and gene therapy. And so when we say regenerative medicine, we very specifically at Stanford mean cell therapies and gene therapies.
Okay,
And so it's like this, we're using regenerative medicine as sort of this umbrella term to really specifically mean cell therapy and gene therapies. And I believe CIRM uses regenerative medicine in the same way, except for the fact that CIRM, which is this California Institute of Regenerative Medicine, they actually fund all kinds of research from the preclinical research, meaning the time before these new treatments get tested in humans in clinical trials. There are preclinical stages, starting with mouse models and proving a concept in mice, like all the way up through getting to FDA approved products at the end of the human clinical trial steps. And so for CIRM, regenerative medicine really encompasses that entire pipeline, from being a concept in the lab that is demonstrated with evidence base in mouse models or other animal models, all the way through the end, which is the last stages of which are getting to become an FDA approved product.
Gotcha.
So regenerative medicine can encompass that entire pipeline from bench to bedside.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Then our next pillar here, and really what why we're coming to you all today, is we really want to support equitable access and inclusivity in our cell and gene therapy clinical trials. Research is only as strong as the ability of and the strength of the diversity of all the people who are willing to participate. If we want treatments to be available and suitable for all populations, we really need that diversity. Really helps the scientific research, as well as access to care, right? We want to make sure that there is equity in the way that people are able to receive these highly advanced treatments. These treatments can cost, there are many access challenges, starting from the fact that these treatments can be very high cost. And so we are working on trying to make sure that there's equity in the way that people have access to these treatments.
Awesome.
And then the last piece is around training. So it's, developing your next generation of STEM leaders, your next generation of cell and gene therapy physician investigators. So that's a third bucket of work that we have under the umbrella of the Alpha Clinic. This is a question that I get a lot, because there's so many rare diseases often only affect a few people relative to, say, other population health considerations like maternal health or child health, and so I get this question a lot, like why should we focus on cell and gene therapies? Why do we invest billions of dollars into developing these treatments and cures if there are not too many people that will benefit at the end as a public health expert, I get that question all the time.
Mhm.
If you take together all of the different monogenic diseases that are out there for which there are mutations that could potentially be modified or corrected, there are over 6,000 monogenic diseases affecting over 300 million people worldwide. And that is excluding conditions like autoimmune conditions like lupus. So if you add the population of lupus, for example, folks struggling with lupus, like that adds to that number. And the field, as I mentioned before, is completely expanding to more common conditions. But starting with the rare diseases, many of these conditions don't have naturally a cure in our standard of care treatment options. But if we could genetically modify cells to be able to address the mutation at play, then these cells can be living drugs that can help replace the damaged tissues or give the immune system a fresh start, or providing in some other ways a potential cure to any of these conditions.
I love the whole living drugs and how that is, it's put into you and to help you and your body understand what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And I love the whole living drugs because sometimes we think that drugs are just, in pill form or in an infusion form. But when you put it in the way of transferring cells, it makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's a beautiful in concept as well. I think to think about someone's own cells, then being changed to be able to help one's own body. Yeah. So we'll get into that in a little bit as well. Before we do, I just want to give a brief, review from what we all might have seen in high school or college classes in biology, and so just a brief refresher on what is a gene. It's a basic unit of heredity, and it affects everything that makes up who we are, like our eye color, facial features, and many different health conditions. And each gene, it occupies a place on a chromosome. A chromosome is an X-shaped figure that's located in the nucleus, which is sort of the center of the cell, the central operating, the brain of the cell. And there are 20 chromosomes. We have 46 chromosomes that come in 23 pairs, and each chromosome carries thousands of genes. And so what happens is, each gene has a very specific function and role in determining, different aspects of one's physiology. And the role of a gene is determined by DNA. And DNA is made up of building blocks called bases, and they're joined in a very specific order. Like basically, if everything is arranged correctly, you have genes that are working properly. But then if they are misarranged or somehow in the process of replicating, the pairs get misaligned, then you have what we call a mutation. And so mutations are very are genetic changes in the structure of the gene, and these mutations can lead to what we call genetic disorders.
It's important to understand this information because educationally wise, the more we know, the better we'll understand, correct? And
Exactly.
if we understand that, we might not know if it came from our genes, but if we understand what a gene is and how it plays in our body, we can then understand what you're getting ready to talk about, which is the cell therapy.
Exactly. Yeah, I think if I didn't know what a gene was, I would not be able to understand gene therapy. This is just a visual of what we just walked through. So here's that X-shaped figure that we call a chromosome, and we have 23 pairs of them in this figure here. Let me see if I can use my pointer. Can you see my pointer, Raquel?
I sure can.
Oh, great. Okay, so this is what we call our central part of the cell, our nucleus, which is the brain. It contains the DNA, instructions for how the cell develops and functions. And the chromosomes are located in the nucleus, and chromosomes are where genes are located, and genes are made up of DNA. And if you look here on the right-hand side, this double helix structure is DNA. And then within the DNA, you see these yellows matched with purples, and then you see these reds matched with blues. Those are what we previously referred to as base pairs, nucleotide base pairs, and they are very specifically paired. So it's always going to be in a properly functioning gene that the one of these reds are going to be matched with the blue, or in other words, the C's are going to be matched with the G's. And then the purples are going to be matched with the yellows. And in the case where that gets messed up, that's where you have an example of a mutation. There are other ways that mutations can occur within this structure, but very basically, usually there's something wrong with the sequencing here that causes a mutation.
So this is so important because I think sometimes we get caught up in the idea that a cure should be here by now. Everything should be done. We shouldn't have these diseases. They should be eradicated. But we have to realize that the body and the gene structure and the DNA structure is so complex. It's not as simple as just creating a pill to cure lupus.
Exactly. And it's taken scientists decades, to be able to first understand this whole structure. And then after understanding this entire structure, to be able to then say, okay, how can we go in and modify it? And what does that process look like? And how can we develop technologies around that? So it's been a long arc to get here where we are today, where we actually have FDA approved products that are gene therapies, which is essentially modifying these structures to correct the misalignments.
Wow. Amazing. Medical science it's amazing.
Yes, we're living in very unprecedented and very highly innovative times. So yes, this slide I think just went over exactly what it is that we talked about, just presented in a different way. And it's just telling us that gene therapy is using the genetic material to treat or prevent diseases. So modifying the structure of the gene in order to be able to then use in the body. So how gene therapy works is the way that happens is you can take genetic material that has been modified in a lab setting, and you can insert it into the cell through what is called a viral vector. And the viral vector is sort of like this packaging that helps carry the working gene into the cell. And it sounds, people, I know that people are a bit, wary of gene therapy sometimes when they think of using viruses as vectors, but viruses in this context it's not, the like live, disease. It's not a live virus being transferred into your body. No, it's using it as a vesicle or like a vehicle to be able to then insert the gene. Because viruses have, found, naturally a way to do that. So there are two different types of gene therapies, or there are two ways of giving gene therapies. In vivo, which is newer and a little bit more advanced in terms of the technology, is basically you can inject the gene straight into the cell. So that's a little bit newer. And then you have what is the more traditional, I would say, which is the ex vivo approach, which is basically you take a person's disease cells out of their body, you modify it in the lab, and then you infuse it back into the patient's bone marrow, and then the cells regenerate with the modified version of the cell.
Are taking time, and they're the brilliant minds that are doing this is just amazing.
Yes. Hopefully we'll have, I think in a part 2, maybe Raquel, that you and I talked about something that is very specific to lupus, CAR T-cell therapy. We might have a faculty member come and share more information about the latest with you all.
Definitely. That would be very helpful.
So this is gene therapy. It's less relevant to our audience today, which is folks interested in lupus and treatments for lupus. What is coming up in the field for treatments for lupus is cell therapy, and cell therapy is basically just the idea of transferring different cell types into a patient to treat or prevent a disease. So oftentimes you'll see the words gene therapy and cell therapy used together because, basically you're modifying the genes and then you're using cells, to be inserted, back into the body. And so sometimes you'll see terms like cell-based gene therapy, for example, because it does essentially use both techniques, so they get used together. Cell therapies and gene therapies. Yes, we went over a cell in the last slide, and then I think the bottom is just really talking about cells have an age. They grow, they are born, they grow, and then they die, and then new cells are created to take their place, and our body knows how to replenish cells. And when I would say, just to add to this, when cells first start off, they start off as a foundation called stem cell, and stem cells are like baby cells. And then, when stem cells grow, they differentiate to become have a specific function and to be located in a specific place in the body. So you'll have your nerve cells, which looks like this little, red structure with fingers to attach to it. You'll have your red blood cell here. But when cells first start off, they start off as stem cells, and then they differentiate into some of these other types of cells, into mature cells.
I love how simple you made it to understand, as far as the cells taking their marching orders, so to speak, to go into the body and do their job.
And we use stem cells because they are such, the origin source. We use them for that reason, because they have the potential to turn into other types of cells, right? And so how cell therapy works is there's two different kinds of cell therapy. The first one is called autologous cell therapy, which is using an individual's own cells. So their own cells are taken out of their body, modified, and then put back in. But then you also have what's called allogeneic cell therapy, which means that it's not the individual who has the disease whose cells are being used, but it is they require a donor, a matched donor, someone who matches their cell profile, and they need a donor's cells to be used in order to be able to conduct the cell therapy.
Is that essentially like bone marrow transplants, almost, I guess?
Yes, that's right. The applying cell therapy, so the hematopoietic stem cell transplant is what we typically is a form of bone marrow transplant. And so that's where we need a matched donor in order to be able to then conduct the bone marrow transplant. So yes, and we'll focus more so in this talk about CAR T cell therapy, which is really looking at the basic cells within our immune system, our T cells, which help fight germs and diseases. And so the way that CAR T cell therapy works is we attach something called a CAR, which stands for chimeric antigen receptor therapy, and we attach, and what it is it's essentially a receptor. It makes our T cells receptive and able to identify cancer cells in the body, to then be able to then identify, target, and then destroy those cancer cells. So it gives it's kind of like it gives the T cell superpowers, right, in a sense, to be able to recognize and kill those cancer cells.
Yeah, it goes in there like Superman and takes care of the villain and goes on about its business.
Yes, yeah, and I can actually share a video about that in a little bit, or right now actually.
Called CAR T cell therapy traditionally uses an autologous approach. This treatment modifies the individual's immune cells, called T cells, by adding receptors to them, and when delivered back to the patient, they recognize and kill cancer cells. Allogeneic cell therapy means the cells are from someone other than the patient, such as a healthy and compatible or matched donor. These may be treated or not treated before going to the patient. A hematopoietic cell transplantation typically involves an allogeneic approach. This treatment uses hematopoietic stem cells to establish healthy blood cell production in individuals whose blood, immune, or other cells are not working properly. There are still challenges to overcome for those seeking cell therapy as a potential treatment. One challenge is the body's own immune system response. Here to explain more is Dr. Isabelle Riviere.
When donor or modified cells are introduced into the body via cell therapy, the immune system may recognize them as foreign and begin attacking the healthy cells, leading to multiple complications.
To avoid this, donors need to be compatible, and patients may need to follow a pre-treatment called conditioning that can be hard on the body, but is necessary to decrease the immune system's activity. This is just a snapshot of the ways cell therapy is being applied to help replace, repair, or regenerate the cells in our body to help tissues and organs function properly, or give our immune system a boost to fight against diseases. Advances in cell therapy are being studied in the laboratory and clinical trials, which allows us to better understand how we could treat and hopefully someday prevent debilitating diseases.
And it's interesting because and we might have talked about this before. I guess my biggest question to a doctor would be, how does the body even recognize not to start this whole attack from the B cells to the T cells and all the different cells? How does that operate? I know we probably don't know offhand, and researchers are still looking into it, but I definitely would love to know, like, how are they seeing it in the patients that they already have, and how quickly, if at all, if that disease is coming back, since we took these CAR T cell therapy and placed it in them and started to retrain their body how to act right, pretty much. It would just be interesting to see how long that lasts.
So I think you got to my next slide there. The idea, as you mentioned, the idea is right now we're looking into research about how we can get CAR T cell therapy to deliver for lupus.
Yeah.
And so, as you said, lupus is, is about overactive B cells, like targeting cells in the body and then destroying. In CAR T cell therapy, the idea is that these T cells that are equipped with this CAR should be able to recognize and destroy B cells throughout the body. The question that you're asking is, I think, the question that researchers are actually very actively investigating now in their clinical trials to see if this concept could actually work. Right now, it's in the stage of being a hypothesis. Can we actually use CAR T cell therapy to be able to deliver for lupus? And I think, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that CAR T has been very good at identifying, destroying cells. And so being able to target B cells and then destroying them all seems like it would work. But I think we would have to know more and to be able to have findings from these currently actively going clinical trials to be able to definitively conclude, that it is effective. I think the idea here is that, if you can find and destroy all the B cells, the healthy ones and the not healthy ones in your body, that means you're kind of clearing off the immune system, right? You're clearing off the B cells. You're completely clearing the immune system. And the idea is that maybe by clearing it off and allowing the cells to grow back, that maybe when they grow back, they could grow back healthier, they could grow back as healthy B cells. So it's giving like the immune system like this sort of reset or a chance for a new start. And so I think you're right. We have to wait and see whether it works.
Yeah, we definitely have to wait and see, and have the people and the information to actually be a part of it. You know what I mean? People shouldn't be afraid to try different things that help us. So those clinical trials are really important.
Yes, and since CAR T has proven very successful in other areas, I think there's a lot of confidence that it can work for lupus as well, because it follows a similar mechanism. But let me share, one more video with you all, which gets at a little bit more detail about CAR T for lupus.
And while you're pulling up that video, I think that it's important to know that it's not something that's overnight. It's something that's going to take some time. Even when
Yes.
you're in the clinical trial, it's going to take some time for it to, migrate into your system. To, like the video was saying, to make sure that, everything is right and everything is introduced properly. So it's not something that's overnight, but it's definitely a great start to see if we can find a cure.
Yes, people actually, when they participate in a cell and gene therapy trial at Stanford, often have to relocate to Palo Alto for the period of time that doctors will be monitoring. It first takes time to take the cells out of the body. It then takes, time to modify the cells in a lab in our manufacturing facility, and then it takes time afterwards, after the cells are reinserted, for the body to then grow back, the cells that they need. So it's a pretty involved process, and people actually relocate for the period of time that they're undergoing this lengthy treatment to the Palo Alto area for their treatment.
Yeah.
So you can imagine there's all kinds of barriers associated with, is someone available? Can they get time off work? Do they have childcare options? Can they make that travel? Yeah, and we try to help with as many of those related, concerns as possible in our work. But it is very difficult. It is a very lengthy. It's difficult not only physiologically, but also the pieces around whether it fits into one's lifestyle and
and just mentally, it's mental health month, so it's important to talk about that. So,
yes,
you're going through something that you have no idea what's going to happen, and that can mentally take a toll on you, and emotionally, and when you start feeling different, all of that can take a toll on you. So it's not something that's just so quick, boom, you're cured. It's something that is an absolute process that people need to understand.
Yes.
If you've been suffering from an ongoing, uncontrolled autoimmune disease and find yourself in a repetitive cycle of doctor visits and treatments that just controls symptoms like I did, you deserve the chance for a fresh start. Know that there may be hope. My doctor mentioned research of a potential treatment called CAR T-cell therapy, which is being studied in certain autoimmune diseases. CAR T-cell therapy works differently from other treatments. It is built from your body's natural defense system, the immune system. Imagine your very own cells. Your T cells and B cells are your immune defenders. They guard against invaders like bacteria and viruses. But some B cells are overactive. They target healthy cells instead of attacking invaders. In autoimmune disease, your body starts to produce more and more overactive B cells that may damage the body's healthy tissues. If they are not stopped, the damage to the body can get worse over time. This could lead to the symptoms you experience in autoimmune disease. Your T cells, which guard against foreign invaders, can't detect your own overactive B cells. So, how do you win a fight against yourself? With CAR T-cell therapy, it's a type of immunotherapy that's personalized for you. When you and your doctor decide that participating in a BMS CAR T study is right for you, here's what happens. First, some of your T cells are collected. Your blood, including T cells, is collected and sent to a CAR T-cell manufacturing facility. Then, special molecules called CARs are added to those T cells, turning them into CAR T cells. These CAR T cells are then returned to your body with a one-time infusion. Inside the body, CARs act as sensors programmed to detect B cells. CARs give CAR T cells the power to search throughout the body to find B cells. CAR T cells find and destroy B cells, which may include overactive and healthy cells. By targeting B cells, CAR T-cell therapy may remove a key contributor to autoimmune diseases. After the infusion of CAR T cells, you will be closely monitored for side effects. After treatment is completed, you will be monitored over the long term for disease control and potential side effects. Through CAR T-cell therapy, the immune system may be able to overcome the overactive B cells and stop further damage to the body. Over time, the body replaces the destroyed B cells with healthy new B cells. These new B cells could give me a fighting chance against my autoimmune disease. Medical experts believe that these healthy new B cells may reset the immune system and give it the potential for a fresh start, like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
I often describe lupus to children like a superhero. Your immune system is this superhero that's supposed to protect you, and sometimes it just gets confused and it thinks that everything in your body is just a villain. So that was really kind of cool to see it in that way.
Yeah, that's I personally very much appreciate the anecdotes to that make it very relatable. It's been fun to I spent some time at a local children's museum. It's like a science museum, and we've had a team come in to describe it kind of the same way, and it's been really great to see the kids grasp that concept. But I think it helps everyone.
Yeah, that concept, the whole concept, and it's easy to understand. It's easy to understand. That's the most important part.
Yes. I just want to give you sort of a heads up for what we might do next time with you all, if you'll have us, Raquel. Is we have currently we have this this clinical trial that's open now on our pediatric side, which is essentially testing CAR T cell therapy for lupus. And so next time we're hoping to have if you'll have us, the PI of the study, Dr. Jesse Alexander, come and explain a little bit more about the details and answer any questions that people might have. And this link will just take folks to the clinicaltrials.gov page. If people don't know about it, if you are ever looking for a clinical trial in the United States of America, you can find any and all clinical trials at that page. It's www.clinicaltrials.gov. So anyone looking for the next cutting edge treatment or wanting to participate in research can use that. It's essentially a search bar, and you can tailor the search according to what it is that you're looking for. And it is the place where every clinical trial has to be registered. So this CAR T cell therapy for lupus link here takes people to that trial page. Okay. But as always, it's very important to have the conversation with your doctor, and it is ultimately that conversation with a person and their doctor that helps determine that kind of eligibility. Absolutely. But folks are very welcome to contact us for questions. Any kind of question about anything that they see on that page or anything that they've seen in this presentation.
Awesome. I love all the information, such great information about therapy, that whole cell and gene therapy, just fantastic information, and made it very plain and very clear for those who are looking into finding different ways to treat lupus. And I just need to say it again. It's not something that is quick, fast. It's in trials. We have researchers, clinicians, doctors, everyone looking at different ways that we can help you on your lupus journey and possibly control those symptoms and possibly remove the lupus from your body. So the information was very clear and very, very important. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Raquel, for having me and for giving me the opportunity to meet you and to talk with your community. And please let me know if there's any questions. If I don't have the answer, I will happily connect people to folks that have the answer.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. We look forward to future podcasts with you that we can give even more information about the things that you all are doing and how we can help treat lupus. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Raquel.
All right. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.